Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Housewives Book Club. I am with my beautiful friend, Molly Mulshine. I am Jen Keefe. Molly, what's going on?
What's going on is we're in part 4 of Pursuit of Porsha. We're still pursuing Porsha. She is getting married to Kor-Hell Stewart, who famously melted down his ex-fiance's engagement ring, reshaped it like a Pokemon, and gave it to Porsha. And Porsha said, yeah, because God sent you to me, I will accept this ring. And now they're getting married in the St. Regis Hotel of Atlanta.
Yeah, yep. I think we did talk about this, but I'm still not over that the wedding was $3 million.
$3 million is so much money. I don't know if I could have even gotten to that price on my wedding. And boy, did I ever try. So she talks about how he bait and switched her and her family. She says Kor-Hell acted like he worshipped me. He would, after dinner on Sundays at her mom's house, he would sit on the floor under Porsha, rubbing her feet. And so even Miss Diane loved Kor-Hell. But then Miss Diane started to feel a little sus about him because he pushed her to give up the condo, the famous condo that God told her to only buy one of.
Right. Yeah, the red flags with Kor-Hell slowly emerge here.
Second night in the St. Regis post-wedding, he's like, go grab some stuff at the penthouse. And she goes and she's like crying because she's like, oh my God, did I make a mistake? I'm losing my condo. He also covered the mortgage for her condo, which again, selective cheapness. Like he acts like everything is such a big deal, but then he's got enough money to like cover the condo and do the wedding and everything. It's just like, I don't know. It was weird. I was like, wait, Kor-Hell, how much money do you actually have?
Yeah, a lot.
A lot.
Well, I had a allowance, which is about $1,500 per month. It wasn't enough to cover what I needed to take care of for a house that size and to get his son what he needed. I want to get into Kor-Hell's son. This was insanity. Kor-Hell, without including me in the decision-making process, sued to obtain full custody of his son literally 30 days into our marriage without talking to her.
That's so crazy. And obviously had the expectation that she was going to take care of the son 24/7. And this is after very recently he was still sexting with the wife, the ex-fiance. She found a sext on his phone that he had sent to his ex saying like, let me see that, you know what? You know, he's still sexting this woman and he's embarking on a custody battle with her. Like this guy is twisted.
Just in a partnership, you hopefully talk about things much smaller in your relationship than, by the way, I'm pursuing full custody of my son. Like you talk about what you're going to have for dinner. You talk about, hey, are you picking him up from school? I got drop off tomorrow. And this guy just drops on her, by the way, I'm seeking full custody. And Porsha was very open that she loved this son. She was grateful to step into the role of motherhood in this way, which is so beautiful. So it wasn't at all, smacking of selfishness. It was completely a reflection of Kor-Hell's selfishness.
Right. And it just strikes me how little agency Porsha had over the course of her 20s in when and how she would become a mother, because she had it taken from her so many times. And now she is being forced into this position by his ego wanting full custody. She never gets a chance to actually let her feelings be known about it. And it's so twisted and crazy. And I was also listening to Cher's memoir the whole time while we've also been reading this one. And the parallels between Cher's love life and Porsha's love life are so wild. Like, I hope Porsha has also read Cher's memoir because she'll be like, oh my God, we're twins. And it just also made me feel like domestic violence, controlling men, just the disrespect that men show women in so many marriages. It is so similar across the board for so many women that it can only be described as systemic. It's not an individual thing. It's not just you got unlucky with a bad guy who lied to you. There's a system in place that is enabling all of this to happen. Sonny Bono sued for full custody of Chaz at one point when Chaz was little, and he wasn't going to take care of Chaz. He was going to have nannies do it. And Kor-Hell wasn't going to take care of his kid. He was going to have Porsha do it. There's not even a question of like who's going to do the day to day. It drives me crazy, like the parallels between all women who go through things like this. It's and we are kind of meant to believe that it's because we have a bad picker. You know what I mean? Like we picked the wrong man. And it's like, no, this is a universal, worldwide problem. Obviously, hashtag not all men. My husband is not like this, but it's not because I'm skilled at picking a husband. It's literally not. Like, I could have gone down this road so many times with other people, the same road that Cher and Porsha have been down, because it's not, you can't control it. It just was like blowing my mind thinking about how similar their situations were and how similar all situations like this are. There are so many hallmarks of like a controlling guy that just always escalate into these other more horrible things, you know?
I'm glad you're bringing up the issue of the errant picker, because I think it was in perhaps the In the City reunion. Andy said, "So do you think your picker's off?" And I'm struggling to remember if it was Lindsay, but in a recent reunion, Andy asked someone, "Is your picker off?" And in that moment, it just resonates what you're saying. I'm like, Andy, that's not the right question. Like this woman's picker is not off. Like, she just encountered consistently trash dudes.
Yes, you might as well just say, is there a way we can blame this on you?
Yes.
What can
Yes.
how can we contort this to be a woman's fault and not a man's fault? Because it's never that, I mean, it, it's never that a man did something bad because he's bad. It's always like, oh, well, you allowed it to happen because you didn't have enough self-respect or
Right.
self-esteem. It's
Right.
just, oh my God, it just drives me so crazy. And there's
Right.
like pandemic level horrible shit happening through men like 24/7 since the dawn of time. And it's still like, well, what can we do to stop it? Like, no, nothing, nothing. The men have to stop.
Thank you. Thank you. The man pandemic. You heard it here on Housewives Book Club. Okay, so Cordell is slowly but surely completely isolating Porsha to his house, to his family. And Porsha writes, "My aunt talked too much. My girlfriend was too loud. My cousin didn't use coasters. Then my assistant couldn't come over anymore. Next, Lauren was banned from the house until eventually nobody was allowed in the house except for me, Cordell, and his son."
He at one point gets mad because her brother brings his kids over and he complains that they left footprints in the grass. In
I highlighted that.
a second lot of land that he was letting them run around, not even on their own main property.
That is a sinister, evil person complaining about children leaving footprints in the grass.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Now, she talks about, and I don't know what is the classy way to handle this, but it is mentioned repeatedly on the show. And I think she mentions it in the book and in the blogosphere at the time. It was a huge story. Gay rumors around Cordell. Now, obviously, this is a very fraught topic, and it's not fair the way that an NFL player would be treated during that time. If it was true that he was gay, I wouldn't blame him one little bit for being closeted. And it was all based on a completely false rumor that he was arrested George Michael style for like indecent exposure in a park or something. And it was not true at all. I did a lot of research into this. Basically, from what I could find, most people think that it resulted from someone, a cop on the radio, saying, "Oh my God, this guy we just caught in the park, it looks like Cordell Stewart in Pittsburgh." And it wasn't him. And apparently that was the genesis of the rumors that have now followed him for decades, really. And Porsha and her mom really go in on the season 6 premiere episode. They talk about it for a little. They kind of really give it a lot of airtime. And Miss Diane basically is like, I don't know, maybe. And it's unfair. and it's not cool, and it's the kind of it's a witch hunt type rumor where you just say it and it's kind of self-propagating and it will never go away. It's like cheating rumors. Like, it's not where there's smoke, there's fire. It's just a rumor that you can start about someone and then it goes nuts. But the only thing I have to say is being so controlling and psychotic not gonna help. Like, this.
You heard it here first, folks. Molly Mulshine thinks that all closeted queer people are controlling. No. Well, yeah, Colton, what's his name? Colton Underwood? Like,
Yes.
classic case.
Exactly. Just reading the way that he treated her, the way that he played her and his ex off of each other. Even the sext that he sent to his ex was so possessive. It was not erotic. It was possessive and controlling. I can see why Portia, upon exiting that marriage, was like, you know what? Maybe, you know?
Yeah, I don't blame her at all for participating in those and giving oxygen to that discussion at that time.
Yeah. I also found this interview of Portia in the offices of some 2010s blog like This Hollywood Life or something like that. And she's literally sitting with the reporter on rolly desk chairs with a full newsroom behind her. It's the most low budget interview I've ever seen in my life. And the headline is like Portia addresses Cordell Stewart gay allegations. And it's just it's like a time capsule from like 2014 or whatever year it was. So if anyone wants to just like journey back in time, check out that interview.
Like HuffPost Live, The Soup.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. She's even probably wearing like a peplum top, you know?
Ooh, what's a peplum?
Peplum, it's when it's tight and then it flares out around like your mid stomach area.
Totally. I
So flattering, so flattering. Oh my god, I wish they would come back. The 2010s was such a bonanza of loose midsection garments. We really lost a lot when we moved to
oof,
high-rise jeans.
oof, bonanza of loose garments. Okay.
All right, so she had to cut off communication with everybody and then she gets pregnant and this is where it really just gets like horrible. You just I cried during this part. So
Yeah.
she goes on bed rest because she's got fibroids. And they're like, your baby still has a heartbeat, but you will have a miscarriage in about 2 weeks because of where your fibroids are located. The embryo is cornered. And I was wondering, like, was it because she was in Georgia or was it her personal choice that she didn't just, like, have an abortion? Because in that situation, when they know the baby's not going to make it, normally they'll say, like, so that you don't have to keep going through this for 2 weeks. So I was curious about that, but obviously it wouldn't make it any better. It would still be horrible. He detached from her and her mom took her to the rest of the doctor's visits and he goes to a golf tournament when like the day the miscarriage starts basically.
It's just classic that these guys, they love to get women pregnant. We're seeing this with Danny Bucco on the Valley. But when it comes time to raise the kids, deal with the repercussions of getting your wife pregnant, they cut and run.
And you can't know what type of man you're dealing with until after the kid is there, which is
Mm-hmm.
the scariest part of all.
Very true.
So that was horrible. It was so sad. So then in chapter 7, this is when she gets onto Real Housewives of Atlanta. And she, unlike, again, most other housewives in their memoirs, Portia admits that she liked the show. I was so proud of her. I was like, yes, truth. This is great.
And we're seeing her in the current day on Ultimate Girls Trip. She gave a nice little shout out to the OC ladies and the New York ladies. She had such a good line about, like, you guys opened the door, but in Atlanta, we kicked it down.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they were like ratings wise, you can't really disagree with the ratings that Atlanta pulled in versus OC in New York.
You know what's really interesting? Right around the time that Roni was tanking, so this is probably 2020, 2021, I was reading about the viewership of Housewives, and it was gangbusters for Atlanta most watched at that time, 2020, 2021. And it was the juggernaut for many years. Like, it led the pack in viewership at this whatever statistic I was looking at 6 years ago, which I didn't necessarily know, but it makes sense. It was one of the first franchises, obviously the first predominantly Black franchise, and I feel like it's harder to get our hands on viewership data today. But of the franchises airing, I think Atlanta is doing decently well.
Yeah, I think Beverly Hills at some point either surpassed it or is like basically the only one that's neck and neck with Atlanta, which
Really?
blows. Yes, it
No, it's gotta be Salt Lake.
no, Beverly Hills is a ratings juggernaut. I know. I know. Nothing ever happens, but it's so past its prime, but it is like a
Hmm,
crown jewel ratings wise.
crazy to me.
I'm fact checking that just to make sure. So, yeah, it is. It's always pulled the highest ratings. Yeah.
Wow.
I know a lot of people too who only watch Beverly Hills, and I'm like, "Where did you find it? Are you a pod person? What do you mean you only watch Beverly Hills?" It's, like, not even funny anymore.
You're a what person?
A pod person,
What's
like an
that?
alien, a person that came out of a pod.
A tall gray or a short green?
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Okay,
So
yeah, sorry. We'll get back to the books. We still have a lot, and we gotta make this the end.
we have so much, I know. So, okay, Portia is talking about how it was kind of funny. She was one sentence banging on about how she wants to showcase her amazing marriage on television and be an example to other women in the country. And then the next sentence, she's like, my marriage was tanking and I thought it would be good to have my own thing going on. And it's like, okay, all right, whatever. I think the second one is probably the real reason. And also, I think she wanted so badly to be having the best marriage that ever marriaged. You know what I mean? I guess it was probably wishful thinking where she was like, maybe if I build it, he will come. You know what I mean? If we get on TV and we're showcasing our amazing godly marriage, maybe he's going to stop being such a psycho or something.
Mhm,
I could
mhm.
see doing that for sure.
Yeah.
She spent $60,000 on her first charity event for filming. And she says the producers didn't tell her to do anything. They were basically just like, no, just do whatever. And she says somehow Cordell knew how to make them both look good. He shows up with a custom cake and a Chanel bag and leaves. And once again, I'm like, facade. He is the king of the facade. It's all smoke and mirrors with him.
Yeah.
So this is where she calls Kenya. She never mentions her by name, but she talks about calling her Miss America instead of Miss USA. And it's funny because she thinks that it's really embarrassing and that they're going to fire her from the show,
Yes.
which is so cute and
Also,
funny.
I have always been interested in this dust up, the calling Kenya Miss America, not Miss USA, because it is my understanding, and thank you to my friend Caitlin, Miss South Dakota 2021, for educating me on this in Miss
Mm.
America, that Miss USA of the less substantive
Yeah.
to
It's
be gentle.
down market. Miss
Yeah.
USA is the hustler to Miss America's playboy, if you will.
Yes, exactly. I would get if it were the reverse, why Kenya would be mad, but I don't know, take the W.
I think it's showing an inferiority complex for being Miss USA instead of Miss America. Like
You're right.
well, I also think she was playing it up for the cameras, first of all, but I think she was reading shade into it where there was no shade of being like, I know I'm not Miss America. You don't have to rub it in, kind of thing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then multiplied that and amplified it for the cameras just to create a conflict.
Yep. Yep.
So I thought it was very funny that Portia thought this was the kiss of death for her. She was like, "Oh my god, I can't believe there's fighting at my party. Like I'm going to get fired." It's so funny and I believe it 100% because even though she was a fan of the show, people still just don't really get the inner workings of story and how story moves forward. And it's like, no, you can't just have a charity event where you look amazing and your husband looks amazing and then we go home. That's so boring. Nobody cares. Like, nobody cares. And that's like just such a huge misconception for anyone who's starting out in any sort of storytelling business. People always, when I used to have like interns or younger reporters when I was an editor, and they'd be like, let's do this really uplifting story on an amazing thing that someone did. And I would be like, I'm so sorry. I completely understand why you want to do that. No one's going to read it. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. There has to be some sort of tension. There has to be a germ of like, oh, but this is different than this. Like, it doesn't have to be conflict. It doesn't have to be mean. It doesn't have to be negative. but there has to be something going on.
Right, right. Classic, you need engine for story. Portia thinks she's gonna get kicked off Housewives because a party she hosted had a fight. LOL.
She gets closer pretty much immediately, actually, with Cynthia and Nene. They kind of take her under their wing, which is really sweet. But at one point, pretty early on, Nene says to her, "You know, you and Cordell are going to break up, right?" And she says women will throw themselves at him and he won't like that Portia has time dedicated to something outside the house. And obviously, Nene was right. But I just thought, God, how depressing that this was so self-evident to Nene that it was just like something she could just say flippantly because it was, in her experience, kind of what happened every time.
Yep. There are so many examples of this, of when a housewife becomes a bigger star than their like D-list husband, that it's a recipe for disaster, but I'm blanking on another example of that. And I should think of one to prove my point.
Oh,
Honestly, I'll use.
Todd and Bronwyn, Salt Lake.
Yep. Yeah, for sure.
But a lot of the time, it's, I think, either consciously or subconsciously, women join the show to get away from their tanking marriage. I
Yeah.
don't know if Bronwyn thought in her head, this will get me out. Even if we have sort of an ironclad prenup, I'll be okay if I'm on the show. But in practice, he didn't like being exposed for being sort of an old fuddy-duddy,
Yeah.
because he was the one with higher status in their marriage when they went in.
Yep. Yep.
And then she gets, yeah, a voice and some power, and he didn't like it so much.
Yeah, and thank goodness she did. I want to continue with that Nene quote you were talking about. Nene goes on to say, or continues to say, people are calling Cordell, quote, Portia's husband. It doesn't matter what job he has now because he's no longer on that field. He's losing fame, and now you're the star.
I don't know if I've ever dealt with a man who would actually give a shit about that. I'm trying to think. There must have been, I mean, obviously, I never had to worry about it because I'm not that successful yet. But like, I just can't. It's so weird to me. Men should be happy to be in the background. Like, it's a great place for them. Women are more interesting and glamorous. Why do you want to be the preening peacock instead of your wife, you know?
Yeah, really gross stuff.
Now, the final nail in the coffin of Portia's, I think, mental, emotional involvement in this marriage is she goes out with friends until 2 a.m. She gets home, falls asleep. She's hungover. She's probably like, what, 27 at this point? And he wakes her up and starts yelling at her that she didn't cook breakfast. I'm sorry, you have arms, sir. And she then says, what he said and did was unforgivable. While there is more to this story, I can't share for legal reasons. I knew it was the beginning of the end.
Oof.
So, I don't know. Horrible guy. He sucks. Went to her
Go to
mom's house.
hell. Go to hell.
Go to hell, Cordell. Went to her mom's house, didn't tell her what happened because she'd kill him. Cordell begged her to come back. She talks about now how she and Cordell's son didn't have health insurance. This is what I'm talking about, the selective cheapness, because health insurance is not a status symbol that you can flex and show people that you're a normal, upstanding person. So who needs health insurance? Then they get in another fight. She says she's leaving and he chases her around the house, locking the doors. She says, a terror and a rage filled my body. I would not be confined one more time. She takes 6 or 7 pills from a prescription bottle so that he'll be forced to call 911. And she says, call 911 because I'm leaving here one way or another. And then finally, I guess, yeah, like she said, that was the beginning of the end. But she still never, now we're on chapter 8, she still doesn't file. She finds out from Twitter that he filed
Mm, disgusting.
because he had said to her, you're going to have to file if you want a divorce. And she says, with what money? So this is another way that he controls her. She doesn't have enough money to go to a lawyer.
Yep. Also, at the top of this chapter, so they're 4 months into their marriage, Portia sees a text on his phone that he sends to his the mother of his child. Quote, send me a picture of that blank. Send me a
Yeah.
picture of that, pussycat.
God. Yeah. I was a little confused because she says she never caught him red-handed cheating. And I'm like, is that text message not red-handed cheating? Like, am I supposed to be letting my husband send that text to people? Like, that's
Well,
red-handed to me. It's over. It's over now. We're done. That's
I think
cheating.
she words it, well, I never caught him red-handed stepping out on our marriage, aside from seeing text messages on his phone. I think she means catching him, physically in the act.
That is in the act to me. Asking someone
Yeah.
or a nude photo is an act. That's the act. Also, she said, and I'm sorry to laugh at this because she's being serious, but I just found it funny. She said, "Thank God for women's intuition." And I'm like, babe, you saw the text. Like that wasn't your intuition, unless I was misreading it or something, but I just laughed at that part. That text message was grounds to leave, obviously,
Yeah.
if I discovered something like that 4 months into my marriage. I also would not immediately like, I would love to pretend that I would immediately file for divorce, but in practice, would you? Like, you don't know, you just don't know what you would actually do, you know?
Mhm. Yeah,
But
easy
it is
easy for
grounds
us to
for
say.
that is betrayal, that's an ultimate betrayal. Send me a picture of that? No, you're allowed to consider that cheating. If you catch someone sexting, that's if you consider that cheating, it's cheating, and don't let them talk you down from that. That's all I'm saying, you know?
Yep. 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 Portia finds out from Twitter that Cordell filed for divorce.
She thinks that because she's getting a divorce, Bravo's gonna fire her.
Oh my gosh, yes. And she talks about since being on Bravo, all the Housewives fans, especially girls from Atlanta, when they saw her, they would fangirl. They'd ask to take pictures, yell her name. Cordell did not like that. In fact, after one run in, I distinctly remember him telling me, quote, "There's only one star in this house."
That's so embarrassing, so embarrassing.
Yeah.
Listen, every relationship has a flower and a gardener, and the worst person you can ever date is a gardener who thinks they're a flower. That's the worst. A better
Yeah.
thing is a flower who thinks they're a gardener. But what you really need is to be matched. One flower, one gardener. Maybe if you're okay switching back and forth, but you both have to have a really strong ego to handle that. So this is a guy who is a gardener. He should be providing for her and saying, "Portia, you're a friggin' star. Do what you want. I'm following your lead because you are the one with charisma and otherworldly worldly talent." Now, yes, he had an otherworldly football talent. He did, which is really important. And it made him a football star. But that's not, he, he's, no, you're not charming enough off the field to be the flower for life. Obviously, Portia is more entertaining than you.
Mhm. Yep.
He was right that there was only one star in that house, by the way. He's just wrong about which person it was.
Yep.
I loved also how she pointed out that the camera picked up on how fake he was being and that he couldn't hide his controlling nature on camera. And he was able to do it in person well enough, but everyone picked up on it watching him. Isn't that interesting? What is that?
The camera doesn't miss. This is I know from doing acting, they talk about how in theater you have to project so people in the balcony can see you, hear you, but when it's TV and film acting, it's small because the camera won't miss a thing.
Right. And if you're being fake, the camera will pick it up. Like it will
Yeah.
pick up your micro expressions that are you going in and out of character. And that's why people do method acting, right? Because they're like, if I stay in it the whole time, then I won't have any like micro expressions that betray the fact that I'm being fake.
Yeah, I suppose.
He got her stuff moved out of the house. He wrote loan on every check he'd ever written to her to make sure it all stayed separate. I'm an idiot. What does that mean? Why would that keep it separate?
Wait, what is she talking about there?
Every time he wrote a check to her, he wrote loan in the notes.
Yeah, that was lost on me too. Maybe because he's saying it wasn't a gift. And then one day, if they got divorced, all the money, all the checks that he wrote, he could ask for that money back, maybe.
Ugh. Yeah, that makes sense.
That's my
Yeah.
best guess. I didn't understand the significance of that either.
Yeah, okay. So now she has to move into her mom's house when she's getting a divorce from Cordell. And her mom is so sweet and so smart. She said, "Portia's moving into the master bedroom and I'm moving into a guest room while the Bravo cameras are here." Because she said, "You're not getting these cameras getting you moving into like a dinky little kid's room. Like you're going into the primary and whatever. Maybe we'll switch it later." And I don't know. I just thought that was really sweet.
Yep. So then Portia writes, "My mother was evicted from her own home. They showed up at my mother's house and started carrying her belongings out onto the front lawn for all the neighbors to see."
Yeah, that sucks. And she managed to hide it from the production company. And every time they
Yeah.
wanted to film in the house, she would just say, "Oh, we're renovating. It's too loud, blah, blah, blah." And they stayed in a hotel with Portia's grandma and her husband. And then finally, she got a big check from Bravo and she was able to get a new home in the St. Marlowe neighborhood, which I was like, wow, that was amazing. That was an amazing feat of money manifestation. She must have been reading Amanda Francis.
Money queen.
Yeah, that was a real Mulshine passage right there. That was something that my family would 100% end up doing. I was like,
Oh.
this is the exact level of, like, financial cushion that we are operating on at all times in the Mulshine household. So,
Oof.
I really heavily related to that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. What a better person to relate to than Porsha Williams.
Yeah. Now
Yeah, I think we can get to chapter 9.
Yeah. So now chapter 9, she opens with her getting in a fight with some girl down the street, and the girl won. And her mom said, "How are you gonna let that girl beat you up?" And she says, "Don't you be walking around getting beat up by nobody," which was great. I mean, this is the type of thing I'm also saying to Daphne all the time when someone's
Good.
like, if someone is starting with you, you can give them one pass, but if they keep coming for you, you have to be like, "All right," you know? So,
Yeah.
she says her lesson from that day was, "If I'm ever in a fight, I'm not gonna be the one getting beat up."
Yep. Yep. And sort of symbolically related to that. So at the reunion, after the season ends, the rest of the cast is taking Portia to task and poking and prodding her about the choices she made in her life and her marriage. And at the time, she was, in her words, still a wife. So I protected us, I protected our family. Quote, I let it all out. I preached a 4-minute sermon saying I was still a wife, trying to figure it all out. Then, in true churchy fashion, I finished it off with a rendition of Amazing Grace. I was authentic and transparent that day, and that's what made Andy say, keep Portia's entire 4-minute speech in the reunion, and let's have her back on the show for another season.
I need to rewatch that because I don't remember her doing a tight 4. Do you?
Yeah, do you think they really kept all 4 minutes? We'll have to roll the tapes.
Right. I really wanna go back and revisit. And I also liked how she's like, "I let it all out." I basically lied about the state of my marriage and pretended it was okay. It's like you didn't really let it all out, but also I understand why you did that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
she also was on defense because they were questioning her for being so submissive to him and making such a big deal out of being submissive. And I do wonder if in retrospect she's like, they had a point, but I don't know. I guess not because it did all work out for her. And I think she probably she doesn't say in the book that she changed her outlook on marriage after this. And that I found kind of surprising because she is so introspective. Like at no point is she like, that's when I realized that we should both have the same checking account or something. You know what I mean? But I don't know. I found that kind of interesting that she never really does an about face on what an ideal marriage should look like, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Because it seems like she puts a lot of thought into that, but then she doesn't really, I don't know. I just would have been interested to hear her thoughts on that after the Cordell situation, you know?
Yeah. After talking about defending her marriage at the reunion, so this would have been season 5, she talks about the season 6 reunion. And that is infamously where she kind of rose up and was going to go after Miss Moore. Portia said that, the wives were coming at her, accusing her of cheating on Cordell. So she was fired up. So she describes the incident as, I came out of character at that reunion. It regretfully taught me to never give my power to a bully again. Although I'll always regret what happened and how she triggered me to step all the way out of my character. It also revealed to me the power of authenticity. I paid a price for that decision at the reunion. I was served with an arrest warrant, charged with misdemeanor battery, and even had to take a mugshot. The most fabulous mugshot you've ever seen. Thank you very much.
No, I didn't love the use of passive voice in that
Yes.
whole thing. I was like,
Classic housewives. I allowed myself. I gave my power. I will never give my power. I came out of character. Very funny.
it's funny. I allowed her to have my power. What, when you were dragging her across the stage by her hair? Like, I think you had the power in that
Oof.
situation by definition.
Yeah.
But what are you gonna do? What are you gonna say? I also don't like when people refer to something they did as something that happened. That's a real pet peeve of mine. This was like probably the only time in the book where I kind of was like, we're diverging here for a minute, Portia and myself, you
Yep.
know?
frickin' Rula's husband on Rhode Island the whole season, talking about him blatantly running around with another woman. What happened happened. Is in the past. It happened. Is unfortunate. Things happen.
Cheaters cheaters love to refer to their actions as something that happened out of the blue.
Yep.
They
Yep.
love it. It's like a hallmark of cheating. Oh
It
god, I
is.
hate that.
It is.
Chapter 10 is when we finally meet Dennis and Pilar, which is a very sweet tale. We also get a little bit of the insight I've been clamoring for into what the heck God had to do with Cordell. She says, "For years I asked God, why would you tell me Cordell was my husband, only for it to blow up in my face? Why would you put me through that? It took me years to actually hear his answer. Because I'm his child, God wanted to give me every single thing I wanted, even if it was outside of his will. I desperately wanted Cordell to be my husband, so God wanted to provide, but it didn't mean that was his intention for my life." It's interesting.
The math is, not for me
Carried,
to understand, but
yeah,
if it makes sense
carry the
to her,
two.
great.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. And she says, "What happens when you step outside God's will? He moves closer to you, making sure that even as you move in uncharted territory, you're still covered by his grace. It was truly the grace of God that kept me alive during that marriage, I've learned."
I'll take that. I'll take that.
So yeah, it's like free will and fallibility. God isn't going to figure it out for you. So you have to figure it out yourself, I guess, kind of thing. And maybe God will help you, like with the condo thing, and maybe he will take a back seat. And those are the times when you're on his back or whatever.
The footprints, because you were carrying me. There's one set of footprints.
I guess it wasn't a piggyback ride. Oh my God, I realized that. I always thought it was a piggyback ride in my head, but it was, yeah, that was when I was carrying you, not
Well,
necessarily on their back.
I always interpreted the poem footprints as yeah, those footprints were Jesus's, because Jesus was giving you a piggyback.
Yeah. They just didn't specify that it was a piggyback. I made that leap, and I'm now realizing that that was all me.
But I
It
think
was
you're correct.
no, but I think Jesus was probably carrying you like Ryan carried Marissa when she OD'd in Tijuana. Like, I think Jesus was probably holding you like a baby during those moments.
Ooh,
Not
got it.
piggyback, because you can't get a piggyback ride if you're in a bad place emotionally. You'll fall off.
Yeah, that's honestly, it's very butch of me to be like, yeah, it was a piggyback.
So we
Yeah,
both
God, give
thought
me a freaking piggyback. He squatted right
maybe
down. I hopped right up.
exactly. Maybe it was a piggyback ride. I don't know. We'll learn someday. So she
Someday.
says, after I grew into a woman who knew exactly what she wanted, I never encountered another abusive relationship again. If I'm being honest, I still don't know what shift happened to break that cycle in my life. But if I had to distill it down into one finite idea, it would be that I had finally grown into my.
Unfortunately, that turned out not to be true with Simon on the horizon.
Was Simon a bad dude? I don't really know the Simon lore.
Yeah. Yeah.
See, this is what I'm saying though. It's not in our control. We tell ourselves it is, and it's not, you know? People manipulate you and lie to you to get you into the position where they can then abuse you. They don't come out swinging like, hey, like they don't have an axe like Jack Nicholson in The Shining, like, anyone want to get married? And then it's like, wow, you picked the wrong guy. Like they trick you and lie. So it's not about your inner strength, really. It's about people doing bad things because they're bad. So anyway, she meets Samuel L. Jackson, which was exciting. And this is where she talks about the products, the sheets, the hair, the wigs.
The sheets, the wigs, the wigs.
That would be a good housewife song. So then she meets Dennis and they've got chemistry.
Okay,
And
quick off the bat. Now, I'm defending Dennis down because Porsha describes him as a good father, and that's all you can hope for. But did you notice that, when she saw him across I think it was at a club, she described him as handsome. Now, I don't know that that would be the leading adjective to describe Dennis.
now that I am looking at him, okay, but he's got a nice, calming and comforting presence on screen to the point where I have never registered him as not handsome.
That's a really roundabout way to say
No,
that.
it's a real thing though. It's a real thing. Like, I think he's got what do they call it? Aura or swag, maybe? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
See, that never came across to me on camera.
He just seems like a nice guy, I think.
Totally, and that's why I do defend him down because Portia says he's a great father and they seem to have a great co-parenting relationship. She just posted for back to school with Pilar this week. I defend him down. Love and uplift Dennis because he's a good dude. But I need to find the way she described it. It was sort of like, yes, everyone universally accepts that this man is gorgeous. And that was a surprise to me. And that's all I'll say.
That's love.
That's love. You're right. You're right. That's what it's about. That's what it's about.
Well, this I didn't like. She was at the club. He wanted to talk to her, and she was like, I gotta go. She later finds out Dennis put a boot on her car so she'd have an excuse to talk to him later in the night. And he called the
Everyone's
city so he could be the Superman and get the boot taken off. I was like, that's psycho. That's the only
yes.
bad thing I have to say really about Dennis because that's psycho.
Everyone needs to stop locking Portia in rooms, slashing her tires. Let the mouse go.
Yeah. Like, what? And
Yeah,
she
that was
says, it was kind of genius. It showed me that Dennis was willing to get a creative in order to get to know me a little bit better.
yeah, that was really toxic, actually.
Whatever happened to a singing telegram?
Whatever happened to a singing telegram malls?
Yeah. And then he was like, we've already met before. And she was like, I don't remember, which is great power play. Love that for her. Now, she didn't really give like a ton of details between meeting him and Pilar being born, if I remember correctly. So now we're driving to the hospital and she had to get a C-section because of her fibroids. And, she was a little bit bummed about that because, we all want to have the natural birth of our dreams. But I think she got over it, which we all have to, because what are you going to do? What are you going to do? I also had to have a C-section. So it's just something that you have to accept. So
Mhm.
then her makeup artist came over and did her makeup and laid her edges down. I was so jealous. I was like, oh my God, I want to have a makeup artist come and do my makeup before my next C-section. That would be so iconic.
Yeah, that was a fun little scene.
Yeah.
Did you dress up for your C-section at all? Well, I know
I,
never mind, we don't have to talk about this. I know it was very
no, we're good.
dramatic. Very dramatic.
No, it's not that it's traumatic. No, for the first one, I didn't. It was like actually horrible. But then the second one, I did buy a special dress. I don't know if they let me wear it though, but I just put it on pretty quick afterward because I was like, I'm not wearing this ugly fucking paper hospital gown.
Right, yeah, I remember that.
One thing I learned about the American or maybe just the Georgian healthcare system was right before her surgery, she had to wash her entire body with red dye to completely sanitize herself. What is that about? I didn't have
Yeah,
to do that.
it's called, like, Hybe cleanse. It's a very common pre-surgery routine. I know when I've had surgery, I had to either before or after the weeks or days leading up use that to prevent infection.
Whole body.
Whole body is interesting. I mean, a C-section is a large incision, so maybe she was just exaggerating. It wasn't really the whole body. You just need to do, that large incision area.
It's just so interesting to me always because I'm like, why didn't I have to do that? And everything that we do in a medical scenario, we take as law, like, oh, this is what has to be done. And then you find out they just don't do it in another country. And it's like, huh?
Yeah, well, obviously you had safe childbirths that produced beautiful children, but,
Right. It's
it's
just, it's
sometimes there's
funny.
a little bit of like medieval views in Europe about bacteria.
Do you think?
Hello. Yes. I
I
mean,
think that,
Ireland's different, but like, the way that people cough in the UK and Italy, you know what I mean? You don't know what I mean?
yeah, I know. Hygiene is not as much of a premium in this part of the world.
Yeah, the BO is crazy over
Feels
there.
crazy.
And hey, listen, before I get hate, y'all are coming up on top if you're living in a European country. You're still coming up on top, all right? Beautiful, fresh food, no red dye, less.
Yeah, don't be thin-skinned.
What do you mean?
Don't be thin-skinned if we say you have BO.
Yeah, because it's very different.
And you do have BO. Like, you
Yeah.
guys have BO. It's a problem here. So, like, either just be like, yeah, we have BO, we don't care, or change it. Don't be
Yes.
mad that we notice. We can't not notice. It's
We
crazy.
cannot notice. And I know it's because your products, all of the alien chemicals that we put in my frickin' Dove invisible solid are illegal over there. And that's why that's why you stink.
Right. So that's your preference, and we have our preference.
Yes. Yes. Okay. Tangent over. Don't know what I did there. Portia gave birth to Pilar.
Okay, she also this I related so heavily to, and I don't want anyone to construe this as me saying that anyone who has a baby will magically never be depressed again, but because it could so easily go the other way. You don't know which way it's gonna go. You could have no mental health issues for your entire life, and then childbirth throws you into your first crisis ever. But for me and for Portia, she says, I've dealt with depression on and off my entire life, but I always knew that if I ever had a child, I'd want to live for her. Nothing would get so bad that I would ever reach those dark places again. She hasn't struggled as much with depression since she had her daughter because her daughter gave her a deeper purpose. And I think this is something that happens for a lot of people, and it doesn't really get talked about. And everyone thinks that having a baby is going to throw you into an existential tailspin. But Portia and I are here to tell you that it could very well be the opposite. But also, don't just have a baby to get out of depression and anxiety because it might not work.
What a beautiful message.
Thank you. Now we get to a part where Portia takes the classy route, and I hate it because I want to know why she and Dennis broke up. Because as we have been saying, they had great chemistry. I really think she loved him. I think he loved her. And they seem like great parents together. They just have a great vibe on screen together. But she takes the classy route because it's Pilar's dad. And she says, Dennis may not have proven himself to be the best partner for me, but he did give me the most amazing gift ever in this world. So he'll always be my family, blah, blah, blah. Come on, tell us what happened.
Yeah, the most she says was 3 months after we welcomed PJ into the world, my relationship with Dennis had started to crumble. So it was just really, really bad. I was so irritated and disappointed with Dennis that I didn't even want to look at him. So a lot of inferences to be made there.
Well, I'm glad that she's the one who seemingly kicked him out because
Yeah.
3 months postpartum for a man to leave, you're on my shit list for life. Like I'm strongly on the record during the Ariana Grande, Ethan Slater days on my old podcast of I don't care how much you hate the person who had your baby after they have your baby, you have to stay there for 2 years. You have to. And then you can start to talk about it. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And you
Yeah.
just have to lock it down for 2 years. No cam girls, no sexting. Sorry, you got someone pregnant and you have to help with the baby for at least 2 years. You need to be in that house. And then you can start to say, "Hey, I don't know if this is working." So, whatever. If she wants to kick him out, if the person who got ripped open and stitched back together wants to kick the guy out, that's a different rule, I would say.
Yes. Yep. I love the 2 year stay minimum.
Yeah. Sorry. You made your
Should be
bed.
it should be law.
It should be law. So, okay, chapter 11. This is when we get into Portia's activism era. And it is really interesting and fascinating to hear her talk about her experience and the way that she decided to go straight into direct action, being arrested on purpose. Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah, and at the very top of the chapter, Portia talks about an incidence of police brutality that she was involved in. A police officer became extra aggressive for no reason when asking for my license and registration. He ended up taking my arm, swinging it behind me so hard that I winced in pain. Out of nowhere, he continued to manhandle me before arresting me. And before you ask, yes, I was cooperating.
Yeah, that was horrible. And she said also during the protests in 2020, her cousin and the girlfriend like got her jaw broken or something like that. It's just really horrible stories, obviously. And the way she talks about it is so accessible and relatable, and just something that I wish people who questioned these 2020 protests could hear, because she talks about it in such a mature way and such a fair way. And what she basically frames it as is disappointment. Like, she's just so disappointed that there are members of this American community and the Georgia community and the Atlanta community who are terrorizing other people. She just frames it in a really positive and uplifting way, I think, of we're all here together. And
Hmm.
how come some of us are brutalizing others for no real reason? And I just think that anybody who heard her words on it would be like, even if they were super not aligned with that cause, would be like, she's making points, you know?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, they were protesting, there was nothing violent going on, and then the crowd was tear gas. She's running, and she had a really clear-eyed reflection after that I thought was really interesting. She talked about, "I've driven by here all the time on the way to work every day, but it felt like a war zone." And she said, "I had made up my mind that I wasn't ever going to protest again, to be honest, because I was hurt. I was let down. I felt like my home had turned on me. I'm born and raised in Atlanta. It's a place where I was so proud to embody and represent. In Atlanta, I felt a real sense of community. But after that protest, I didn't recognize the city that made me to literally run for my life in the middle of downtown Atlanta."
Right. What she's saying is these people work for us. The cops are not like anointed by God to be tear gassing people in the streets. These are the people that the cops are supposed to be protecting and serving. And that is where her disappointment and sadness comes from, which is just so valid. And she talks about how she decided to live stream the protests because so many of the descriptions of the protests, people were using the words like looting and rioting and all these things. And she was like, no, I'm going to show everybody, her 6 million followers, that there is no looting, there is no rioting. This is just a protest. And now suddenly we're getting tear gassed for no reason.
Yeah. I thought this was interesting. Portia was talking about her place in activism after that incident. And she said, "There is an activism ecosystem, and every person, no matter their race or ethnicity, has their place. For some, that might mean protesting on the front lines. For others, it might be making protest first aid kits to hand out to protesters. For some, it's donating money." I just thought that was a really insightful. There's an activism ecosystem. That's a really interesting statement.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. She kind of goes into the fact that she didn't really want to do direct action so much after she thought about getting arrested and having a daughter and everything. So
Yes.
yeah, she's just kinda like she can get the word out to all of her followers and maybe not have to actually put her body on the line, which makes complete sense.
Yep. But she comes to the conclusion, not even conclusion, but the murder of Breonna Taylor moved her to such an extent that she felt that she had to go there,
To
and they
Kentucky,
were, yeah.
because that was a separate one to the tear gas one. I
Yes.
was a
Yep.
little bit fuzzy on the timeline because so she did the first protest, and then the Breonna Taylor story
Right.
started to gain more traction, and she heard about it, and that's when she went to Kentucky and connected with Tamika Mallory.
Yes, that's
And so
correct. You have that right.
yeah, okay. So she gets arrested and she's, like, sitting in the jail, and they made her take off her COVID mask and put on a new one, and they made the men in the jail go on a chain gang with ankle shackles. I was like, "Is that necessary for
No.
peaceful protesters?" Like, that's so dehumanizing.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So they ended up charging 87 people along with her. Disorderly conduct, criminal trespassing, and intimidating a participant in a legal process because they were sitting on the lawn of the attorney general. And she said that was a felony that carried a sentence of 1 to 5 years in prison. And thankfully, the felony charge for every protester was dropped after a very long process, but it's still not stricken from her record. So that sucks.
Yeah. Man, isn't there should be something if you did time due to peaceful protests, you should just get that knocked from the record.
I know.
Well, Portia, you inspire us. We are so grateful for your spirit. You are so funny and joyful, even though you have a lot of reasons not to be, honestly. And in these times, it's certainly millennial online discourse to be like, what a trash fire. How are you doing in this hellscape? The best thing, the most powerful thing we can all do is experience joy. And gosh darn it, Portia, you have done that in your life.
Yeah, you're right. Here. I loved this final quote from her. As a child, I might have found comfort in the camera lenses, but as a woman, especially as a Black woman, I found power. Love it.
End scene. And that is the pursuit of Portia.
That is the pursuit of Portia. There was also an epilogue
Mhm.
She talks about being a work in progress and finding greater happiness and says she is still on the pursuit of Portia. And she hopes these words help you in your pursuit too. If you're still on the pursuit of Portia, drop the sequel.
Ooh, I know. I'm sure she'll have another one. We need another one about her queer reckoning, about everything that would happen with Simon because yeah, you hit the nail on the head. We don't know everything about Simon, and I would particularly be really interested to hear her talk about I remember when the Simon stuff was emerging, that she came out that they were together publicly on social, you just knew she was gonna disappear, leave the show to get away from all the naysayers because she was just on such a path that was destined to not work out, and I would love to hear about everything she was thinking during that time.
Yeah, she's lived 5 more lives since the end of this book, and that was only, what, 5 years ago?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
drop part 2. We wanna hear it.
Drop it.
Okay, rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, leave a comment on Spotify. Any way that you can engage with the material is helpful to us. And thank you so much to everybody who has left comments and reviews. It's so helpful and it's so great.
We got a really lovely comment on a review. I wanna shout out this person that, said she likes listening, thinks that we could be professors. Wow, thank you. Wanted to know our college majors. I'll shout them out. Molly, I assume you were journalism.
No, I was not. I'm a journalism nepo baby, so I was instructed not to major in journalism because I already learned it all. So I majored in English with a concentration in cinema studies, and I minored in French. And I am like 2 credits shy of graduating, unfortunately. But I also have
So
a master's
iconic.
degree. I have a master's degree in film. So I have a master's, but no bachelor's.
Iconic.
Thank you.
Iconic. She is a learned bitch.
Loved college. Like I loved learning. It really is annoying to me that I don't have. But the thing is, we both graduated into a recession and I had a job offer. So I was like, am I really going to not take a job in a recession so that I can retake remedial astronomy to get my English degree? No, I don't think I'm going to do that. So
Right.
I ended
Right.
up going into the workforce. What about you, Jen? What did you major in?
English.
We're both English majors?
Yeah.
How did we
Mhm.
never talk about this? And now
I
we have a
think 'cause
book podcast.
yeah, I just assumed you were a journalism major. I guess that's why. I mean, I feel like majoring in English and journalism are kind of similar. I don't know.
A
But I
lot of journalists
minored
do English, yeah.
in education, so did a lot of work in schools, a lot of like assistant teaching in high schools actually, and then a minor in communications as well.
Okay, okay. You're Bavard. That's French for talkative.
No, definitely, definitely.
English education and communications. Wow. That is you didn't do any, like, theater or acting?
No, I was in a sketch comedy group.
Oh.
No, my
Right, right,
thinking
right, right,
was,
right, right,
like,
right.
I grew up in the hot days of the women of SNL, like Amy, Tina, Maya, and my thinking was, I think it's more useful if I know how to write.
Right, right, and has it been?
No,
Because
I should have gone to
I wouldn't.
I if I could do it all over, I would go to frickin' NYU and meet Rachel what's her name?
Dratch?
No, but love her, love her. She's the it girl. She's in the Charlie XCX music video, I Love LA.
Cannot.
Yes, I would meet Rachel Sena and go on to an explosive career. Yeah, so to answer your question, no, the choosing to major in English at an upstate New York liberal arts college didn't completely pan out for my acting career.
Yeah, if I could do it all over again, I would have I mean, I wanted to go to film school. I was gonna go to Fordham for film school, but I was gonna have to borrow so much money to do that, and I luckily, my parents basically were like, "Listen, you're gonna be hobbled by that debt when you graduate. You can do it if you want, but it might not pan out because 'cause you're not gonna be making that much money with a film degree right when you graduate." But I think being in this is the thing, kids, being in New York City, that's what you're paying for. You're paying for being in the city
Yes.
and making those connections. Like, I got turned down for internships because I didn't live in the city, and they were like, "Oh, we actually can't have people from New Jersey," which sounds like discrimination, but it's allowed.
Yes. all of our high schoolers listening to Housewives Book Club, if you want to be in the entertainment industry, move to New York or LA. You don't even I'm not even advocating that you need a college degree, honestly, but move to New York or LA. You're not going to accomplish the same in Tennessee, Ohio, Illinois. Like, be in New York or LA
Yep. Yep.
or
And do
Chicago.
what? Chicago? Come
If
on.
you're doing comedy, I don't know. If you wanna do, like, stand-up, sketch, I would throw Chicago as a 3rd in there.
Okay, there's something to be said for starting stand up in a smaller scene and getting better quality stage time in that smaller scene and getting better quicker and then going to New York or LA. Yeah, that's really true. That's
Yeah,
true.
like Meg Stalter, Caleb Herron, Grace Kulenschmidt, obviously Tina and Amy, those are all Chicago girls.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I was being what did Tom Cruise say to Matt Lauer? Glib. I was being glib. Remember when he was on talking about Scientology and he was like, "You're being glib, Matt. You're being glib."
I don't remember that, but glib is such a good word.
It is. All right, on that note, 2 English majors signing off to our underpaid lives, and we will catch you all next week when we start Carol Radziwill, What Remains,
Yep,
the best-selling Real Housewife memoir of all time.
ever. Yep. Excited to
So,
dive in, though I know it'll be emotional, but
yeah, I'm gonna be reading it on vacation in Italy, like, great.
great.
So depressing, but we love Carol, so
Yeah. Alright, thanks, Malls.